Welcome to unit number 6. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on sports psychology. My name is Rita, and we're going to be working together on this unit. So, what are the learning strategies, אסטרטגיות הלמידה שאנחנו נתרכז בהם היום? As usual, we're going to be doing pre-reading, קדם קריאה. We're going to be looking at the eye-catching features, אותם פריטים שתופסים את העין בתוך הטקסט. We're going to be looking at scanning, סריקה של הטקסט, the relationship between cause and result, סיבה ותוצאה, comparison and contrast. We're going to be looking at the main idea and examples. We're also going to be reviewing components of research, מרכיבים של מחקר. We're going to be looking at the writer's opinion and also, hopefully, at the end, applying information. So what are the specific objectives for our text today? So in our text today, we're going to look at how writers use popular assumptions to raise the main idea. כן? כיצד כותבים משתמשים באיזושהי הנחה רווחת כדי להעלות את הרעיון המרכזי בתוך הטקסט. We're going to be looking at the psychology of sports fans. כן? אנחנו נסתכל על הפסיכולוגיה של אוהדי ספורט. We're also going to be looking at comparison of studies. אנחנו נשווה בין מחקרים שונים. We're going to be focusing on methods and findings, כן? מהם אותם השיטות והממצאים של המחקרים. We're going to try to draw conclusions, להסיק מסקנות, and to recognize conclusions in the text. We are also going to be identifying and understanding key vocabulary. כמובן מרכיב מאוד חשוב ללמידה של האנגלית, זה צבירה של אוצר מילים, אז אנחנו נתרכז גם פה כדי להרחיב את אוצר המילים שלכם באוצר מילים. We're going to look at cause and result, and again, applying information. אנחנו ננסה ליישם מידע מתוך הטקסט לסיטואציה קצת אחרת. Okay, so finally we're here at lesson number 1, the beginning. As you know from previous units, hopefully, we always begin our text with pre-reading, קדם קריאה. We're trying to prepare ourselves for the subject of the text. We're going to be looking at the eye-catching features, כל אותם הפריטים שתופסים את העין בתוך הטקסט. We're going to be looking at the popular assumptions and scientific evidence. כי אנחנו נסתכל על ההנחות הרווחות, הרבה פעמים כותבים מתחילים באיזושהי הנחה רווחת, כדי להציג את מה באמת קורה במחקר המדעי. And we're also going to be focusing on the main idea, and of course recognizing the main idea in a text is very important for understanding. כן? חשוב לזהות את הרעיון המרכזי בשביל ההבנה. So, the eye-catching features. Let's see what eye-catching features our text has. So, of course, the first thing is the title, the most important thing. It says here, sports psychology. It isn't just a game. Clues to avid rooting. Then, of course, we have the source. We have the source in this text at the top of the text and also at the end of the text. It's taken from the New York Times. So again, it is an article in a newspaper. We also have the author's name. As you can see here, James C. McKinley Jr. It was published in the year 2000. And we also have, of course, in our long text, we have section headings, כותרות משנה, שעוזרים כמובן לחלק את הטקסט לפי נושאים, כשהטקסט מאוד מאוד ארוך, זה מאוד מאוד עוזר לזהות את מבנה הטקסט, את הנושאים השונים שנדברים עליהם בתוך הטקסט. So those are the eye-catching features for this text. But of course, as you know, the most important part of a text, or at least one of the important parts, is the title. So we have to focus on the title and try to understand every word in the title so we can understand the subject of the text. So sports psychology is pretty clear. כן, פסיכולוגיה של ספורט, נחמד. Then it says here, it continues, it isn't just a game, זה לא רק משחק. Clues to avid rooting. Okay, clues to avid rooting. Now, the second part of the title, clues to avid rooting, is a little bit more problematic. Okay, the word rooting, I went to the dictionary and I tried to look for the meaning and I couldn't find it. Okay. Now, sometimes this happens. You begin reading a text and you can't find the definition or the meaning for a word. Now, what do you do when this happens? Okay. What you do actually is you have to count on the context, ההקשר. איך אנחנו נקבל את ההקשר? Okay? We have to start reading. אנחנו נצטרך להתחיל לקרוא, ויכול להיות לפי הפסקה הראשונה, או אולי כמה פסקאות הראשונות, אנחנו נצליח להבין מה המשמעות של המילה הזאת. ותזכירו, הדבר הכי חשוב זה לקשר את זה לעניין של פסיכולוגיה של הספורט, sport psychology. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to start reading the first paragraph, and I want you to think about what does the word rooting mean. Okay, so after reading the first paragraph, I'm sure that you noticed words like sports fans, you noticed words like a big time team, you noticed words like fans, כן? מעריצים, קבוצות, everything that's connected to sports. Okay? So, what does rooting mean? Rooting, of course, means, okay, to support or encourage a person or team, כן? לעודד או לתמוך או להריץ קבוצת ספורט. במקרה הזה, הטקסט הזה הולך לדבר על אוהדי ספורט. Okay? Now, another word that is important here is the word avid. What kind of rooting? איזה סוג של הערצה או אהדה? אהדה נלהבת. Okay? So again, let's look at the title together. Sport psychology. It isn't just a game, זה לא רק משחק. Clues to avid rooting. אנחנו נקרא פה בתוך הטקסט שלנו את הסיבות או את הרקע לאהדה לקבוצות ספורט, להערצה של קבוצות ספורט, או גם נסתכל בעצם על הפסיכולוגיה של אוהדים שרופים. Okay? אפשר לקחת את הביטוי הזה ולהשתמש בזה פה בהקשר של הטקסט שלנו. Okay, so after looking at the title, understanding the title, let's look more closely at the section headings, כן, את כותרות המשנה, which gives me the structure of the text. So remember that the first section usually doesn't have a section heading, אין לזה כותרת, but we always call it the introduction, זה המבוא. In this case, we have a long introduction, paragraphs 1 till 13. Okay. Section number 2, paragraphs 14 till 27, it's a long section. It's called highs and lows of rooting. Okay. So we could translate that as שיאים ונקודות שפל של אוהדי ספורט. Okay, remember sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. So we're going to read about that in this section. Then section number 3 is from paragraph 28 till 39. It's called physiological arousal. איזושהי עוררות פיזיולוגית, עוררות פיזית, כמובן איזושהי תופעה שקורית בזמן שצופים במשחקים. Then we have section number 4, paragraphs 40 till 44, keeping the faith. Keeping the faith, we can maybe translate it something like לשמור אמונים, או להיות נאמנים לקבוצה. Then we have our last section, section number 5, which is called a sense of belonging. Now, section number 5, because it's the last section, we can also expect it to be the conclusion, המסקנות, okay? וכמובן פה מדברים על איזושהי תחושה של שייכות, which is the conclusion of the text. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we're going to reread paragraph 1. Okay, נקרא שוב את הפסקה הראשונה. And I want you to focus on this question, okay? According to the popular assumption in paragraph 1, why do people avidly root for a sports team? Okay, so read the question again slowly to yourselves and think about why most people root for a certain sports team. Now again, if you have something emphasized in the question, for example, popular assumption, הדעה הרווחת או ההנחה הפופולרית, הכוונה מה רוב האנשים חושבים, okay? תחפשו מילים בתוך הטקסט שמקבילים לזה. So if you look at the beginning of paragraph 1, we have the words, it has long been assumed. כן? הניחו כבר הרבה זמן. So what is the popular assumption? Okay? That ardent sports fans derive excitement and a sense of community for rooting for a big-time team. Okay? So why do people root for a certain team because it's exciting, זה מלהיב כמובן, and also it gives a sense of community. So let's continue. So after we looked at the popular assumption, what most people think about rooting, let's look at the following question. What has research actually shown about the reasons for supporting a sports team? Now, when it says here actually, it means that we have a popular assumption, יש הנחה רווחת, מה המחקרים למעשה באמת מראים? So that's what you're looking for in paragraphs 1 till 3, and give 2 findings of research about why people root for a certain sports team. Okay, so now notice the word but, aval. Now, whenever you have the word but or however, ken aval, this way the writer is giving you a different opinion or is giving you a contrasting piece of information. כן, איזושהי פיסת מידע שהיא עומדת בניגוד למה שנאמר מקודם. So let's read this sentence. But a growing number of scientific evidence suggests that for some fans, the ties go much deeper. So here we have a reference to scientific evidence, כן? יש לנו אזכור של ממצאים מדעיים. But if you actually read the sentence, we don't get a lot of information. אז אומרים לנו טוב שבאמת המשמעות היא הרבה יותר עמוקה ממה שדיברו עליו מקודם. So in order to find the actual findings, you should keep on reading. זה כאילו מין המבוא שמציגים שיש פה מחקרים, ובהמשך אנחנו נצפה למצוא את המחקרים. So now I'm sure that you noticed the word, some researchers have found, כן? זה ממצא, כן? חוקרים מסוימים מצאו. What did they find? That fervent fans become so tied to their teams that they experience hormonal surges and other physiological changes while watching games, much as the athletes do. Okay? So from actual research, we know that fans go through physiological changes. הם עוברים איזושהי שינוי פיזיולוגי, שקשור אפילו לעליות וירידות של רמות ההורמונים. Okay, so that's number 1. And if we look at paragraph 3, we can also see the word also, גם, שזה אומר שיש לנו ממצא נוסף. And also towards the end of paragraph 3, we see the words, one study showed. כלומר, all of the information in paragraph 3 is another finding. So what is the second finding? Okay, the self-esteem of some male and female fans also rises and falls with a game's outcome, with losses affecting their optimism about everything from getting a date to winning at darts. So we can summarize the second finding that a person's self-esteem is also affected. כן? הערכה העצמית של האדם מושפעת מהקשר של אותו אדם לקבוצת ספורט. Okay, so now we're going to go to paragraph 4. And we're going to try and answer what is the major question that scientists are focusing on. Now, remember that if you have a question or a major question at the beginning of the text, usually the writers raise the main idea through a question. Now here it says what is the major question that scientists are focusing on. So of course look for something in the text that says it is the most important question, it is the main question, okay? And of course usually highlight that because the writers are probably going to answer the question later on in the text. So in paragraph 4, you can see the phrase, the core question, נקודותיים, כן? השאלה המרכזית. What is the core question? Is rooting for a team good or bad for someone's health? So this is the main question that scientists are trying to answer. And this also is the main question that the writer is trying to answer. So is it good for you, okay, health-wise, to root for a team, or is it bad for your health? So now let's try and review the main points from paragraphs 1 till 4. And if you remember the title, Clues for Avid Rooting, כן, הרמזים או הסיבות לאהדה לקבוצת ספורט. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to summarize the reasons for rooting that the writer raised in the first 4 paragraphs. So remember that the writer began with the popular assumption, הדעה הרווחת. So the popular assumption is that we root for a team because it's exciting. כן, זה מעורר התרגשות. And also it creates a sense of community. זה יוצר איזושהי תחושה של קהילה. Now, he also gave us what scientific research has found. So scientific research has found that rooting for a team goes even deeper, and we actually feel or we go through physiological changes. אנחנו עוברים איזשהו שינוי פיזיולוגי, ממש פיזי, קצב לב, הורמונים, זה הזכירו ככה בפסקאות הראשונות. And also it influences self-esteem, זה משפיע על הערכה עצמית. Okay? And from these pieces of information, the writer is raising a question, is avidly rooting for a team good or bad for somebody's health? And of course, is this good physically and also mentally? So in order to try and answer the question already at the beginning of the text, we're going to go to the last section, and specifically we're going to focus on paragraph 45. Okay, paragraph 45. And let's read the question together. According to the writer, is avidly rooting for a team good or bad for someone's health? So remember, this is the question from paragraph 4. So read paragraph 45 and try and answer the question. Already at the beginning of paragraph 45, it says here in most cases, ברוב המקרים, most means, okay, almost all of them, this deep attachment to a team can be healthy. So the writers are already summarizing and concluding that actually rooting for a team can be healthy. So the answer, of course, would be yes. Then we have the second part of the question. Give 2 specific examples of course, the healthy aspects of rooting for a team. So, of course, if you look at the end of paragraph 45, it says here, rooting for a team can buffer people from depression. Okay? זה יכול למנוע או להגן מפני דיכאון. So, of course, this is a good finding, that it's healthy. And we also have the word and, בנוסף, יש לנו פה עוד פריט, עוד דוגמה ספציפית. Rooting for a team can also foster feelings of self-worth and belonging, כן? שזה גם מעודד או יוצר רגשות של הערכה עצמית ושייכות. So that's a second specific example that shows us that rooting for a team can be healthy. So let's sum up what we did in our first lesson. So we did pre-reading and we looked at the eye-catching features to understand the subject of the text, like we always do. We looked at the writer's use of popular assumptions to introduce actual scientific evidence. So the writers began with what most people believe, and then they gave scientific evidence for the subject of their text. We saw the writer raise the main idea in a question, and it was answered in the concluding section. כן, אז הסתכלנו כיצד הכותב העלה את הנושא המרכזי דרך שאלה במבוא, וקיבלנו את התשובה לשאלה במסקנות בצורה מאוד מאוד ברורה. We also noticed synonyms for die-hard fans. כן, הסתכלנו על מילים נרדפות או מילים שדומות לנושא של אוהדים שרופים. And remember that after all, we're dealing with sports psychology.